district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the district. The GOAT is back. And I got another one for you. Those are the dominoes, because the dominoes are falling, baby. The NFL, gracious as they are, has given the district, more than enough material for tonight's show, guys. We had to pick and choose, try to squeeze as much as we can. I'm going to pass it to you, because not only is the GOAT back, but the guru is back. And I want him to have a proper intro. I wasn't here the last time he came on. Theo, give this man the proper intro he deserves.
So Dalton Kates is back in the GOAT district. Last time he was on, we had an unbelievably good dynasty show. Dalton is a very good high stakes fantasy football player and a great content creator as well. He also has been very sharp with his gambling picks this year. Dalton, maybe you could share with the listeners where they could find your stuff and a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at DaltonGuruFF. So right now, mainly the type of content I'll be producing over the next couple months are going to be NFL draft betting content. That's going to be on 4for4.com, putting a lot of my picks out there in Discord, as well as some articles. And then I just do some dynasty content. I play in a bunch of dynasty leagues, so naturally a lot of my takes and stuff just kind of filter on through Twitter over there. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now. And yeah, as the season progresses, obviously get a lot heavier into a lot of other stuff, but that's kind of my main focus for the time being.
Yeah, and we got to tell the listeners too about that your little score from the combine. Just how much money did you make off that combine?
a lot of money.
Give us a couple of those bets and what the odds were that you won.
Yeah, I ran so hot on the combine. It's one of those things where I got so deep in the weeds, man. I was looking up high school track times, like just stuff you wouldn't even think of. I was if you told me 5 years ago I'd be searching track times in high school for these guys, it's unbelievable. But that stuff and some of that research that I did actually did help out, because I was able to go 4-0 in my combine plays, as well as also hitting on fastest defensive back, as well as Tyquan Thornton was probably my biggest one. Shout out to Fusuvu on Twitter for helping and tip me off to that one. That got it to 50-1 to have the fastest wide receiver time. Ran a 4.28. Dude's a freaking blazer, man. So it was fun. It was a fun combine for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then share with everybody, going back to last summer, where did you draft Jonathan Taylor, which was equally as impressive? I think that was here in that draft.
Yes, so I had two FFPC drafts. I had Jonathan Taylor in both of them, but my second one, I got him at 302 somehow, and it was I've played fantasy for a while, and I remember sitting there after my draft, and it's funny because Dan and Theo, this is actually when I met you guys right after this draft, and I was like, this is a God squad, and my team ended up just running so hot. All my players for the most part stayed healthy and ended up finishing 22nd overall with that team. And it was I may have to just retire from fantasy, because there's no way I'll be able to top that. That team was just unbelievable.
What tournament was that?
The main.
Oh, okay. I finished 22nd in the football, guys. That's why when you said 22nd, I was nice. Yeah. The main. Congrats, dude. That's huge, man. That's awesome.
Dan and I were grabbing people by the shoulder and walking them over just to show them that the Jonathan Taylor share was taken at 302 by my man Dalton.
We
awesome.
didn't have too much trouble finding Dalton though, because he was floating about 2 feet off the casino floor.
Your these prop bets for the combine, is that something you've been doing for a while? Is it something you've just been focusing on more recently?
This year. So with Arizona becoming legalized this year, it's something that I really wanted to delve into. So just learned as much as I could from like especially Connor Allen down at 444, just trying to learn the ins and outs of betting. There's a translatable skill set that comes with fantasy to betting, but there's a lot of like nuances and things that you do have to learn. So I just trying to learn as much as possible. And yeah, this was my first year doing it. So kind of just like took the bull by the horns and kind of got lucky in my first year with hitting some crazy bets, but hopefully can just continue to ride that wave.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a little beginner's luck, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're willing to dig for the high school track times,
I was going to say, especially on defensive players, no?
Yeah, Kalen Barnes. Yeah,
that's a nice one. And that's a nice jersey you got on with the little backwards. For those that are downloading in the pod world, you got a backwards Christian Kirk. What was that deal? The third highest paid receiver right now?
Third highest paid receiver behind DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones.
Happy Christian Kirk Day, guys.
And we all knew he was going to get a huge contract, but it was insane.
Like you knew you'd get overpaid, but this is like next level.
Yeah, next level.
Like 15. I mean, I expected like a $15 million a year, which would have been aggressive, but they went after it, and we can criticize Jacksonville all we want, but at least they're trying to add some weapons and trying to make that team better. Trevor Lawrence, certainly there's no excuses now. They're going out and getting him pieces.
Yeah, I mean it's Trent Baalke is kind of like Trevor Lawrence's crazy aunt coming over for Christmas, and you get that, you wish you were getting some good presents, but you're getting like a 3-pack of handkerchiefs and the ugly sweater and
lots of socks.
Yes, lots of socks. That's exactly it.
So and guys, we'll get deeper into it. Like we said, there's tons of actions, tons of dominoes falling, tons of things we can kind of guesstimate on what can happen moving forward. Tonight, we're going to touch on the rookie class. We're going to touch on, coming out of the combine, going into the rookie or getting closer to the rookie draft. We're going to talk about all these different signings, movings, guys getting dropped or cut. In some cases, like obviously we're focusing on Dynasty. Last week, guys, we had Randy and Jerry on from the Dynasty Warzone. So make sure you go back, check out that episode. We got Dalton on tonight, another Dynasty guru. So make sure you guys are checking out the shows, guys. We're coming strong all off season. We got to start with the GOAT, guys. We got to start with the GOAT. The GOAT is back. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I was sure he was done. He was retired. It seemed like he was. He had done everything. I've even got his NFT. I was hoping it was his last NFT. Not anymore, right? I'll go to you first, Dalton. What does this do for you now moving forward, fantasy-wise? What's the ripple effect with the GOAT coming back to Tampa Bay?
Oh, stocks up for everyone. You got to be fired up for it. I mean, Godwin, Evans. I think people were kind of down on, especially Evans heading into the year, didn't know what the situation was. I mean, getting Godwin back is huge for Evans. Getting Brady back is even bigger for Evans. And not only that, but I think we're probably going to see Gronk come back as well. And a guy like Leonard Fournette. I mean, I think early on in the offseason, he was going like 4th round, and then Brady retires, falls to the 7th. He's going to be propped back up again. I think that he's likely going to head back to Tampa Bay. Him and Brady seem to have a good connection there. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just the same thing as last year. What we're going to see is there's really just going to be this progression, or I mean, it's going to be one of the best offensive leagues. So I mean, everything that we saw last year, assuming health and everything, I'd assume that we're seeing very similar type of results from them this year.
Some people are going to have some sexy ADPs in those super flex.
Oh, yeah.
Some Brady guys, we've seen him in the best ball drafts.
Oh yeah.
I was in an NFFC best ball draft where he went in like the the 31st round or something like that. You know,
It's nuts.
because everybody just assumed he's retired, and of course whoever was the lucky one who happened to be on the clock when he unretired, boom, there you go.
Shout out to Joey Brown,
Merry
who got him in
Christmas.
the 24th round in our NFC.
Right, exactly, yeah.
No, Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani tweeted earlier today that Brady's back up to quarterback 5 in now these early best ball drafts.
Wow.
So it's
just
the
going-
market,
it's just
market
going
corrects
up right
itself so quickly. But at the end of the day, the guy has 83 touchdown passes the last 2 regular seasons, and it's Godwin, it's Evans, it's Gronk. The gang is back, and you have to expect more fireworks in Tampa. It's just nuts how quickly these things turn.
The Gronk
Evans
for sure. Have we heard anything on Gronk? Like, or is that just no?
No, it's just speculation.
Gronk, I'm speculation, but I would be surprised if it doesn't work out with Gronk.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're going to be attached, and
he's all jacked on CBD, man. Come on.
Yeah.
guy's ready to go.
Oh,
And Mike Evans, I was trying to get Mike. I have big regrets because I feel like the market it cooled so much when Brady retired for Mike Evans. I kept sending low ball offers, and it just wasn't quite high enough that people would pull the trigger. So I ended up acquiring no Mike Evans in that time period. I still have some, but I wish I had a lot more because he's the biggest beneficiary right now.
Yeah, same. I sent a few low balls and just never quite got up to the price that people wanted. And I got to say too, props to Tampa on working on filling out some of the other parts of the roster before they go to running back. Because I mean, I think there's a great comfort with Leonard Fournette. I think they feel like they can probably get him back, but ultimately, as long as they've got a running back who can pass protect and catch some passes, Brady's going to be able to work with him and use him. And I don't think it matters much who that running back is. As long as he's got that skill set, and there are a few guys out there with that skill set. I mean, Melvin Gordon would be another one, so they can use the running back market against him to kind of hold that value down.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Theo.
I was going to say, I think the only slight concern would be the offensive line, especially that interior line. Marpet retired. They're going to lose a couple guys here to free agency, but I think that's something that they'll address. They still have their first round pick. They still have their second round pick. But Arians is a good enough offensive coach that's going to be worked out. But you certainly don't like to lose your all pro center.
Yeah, and they did sign one of their linemen today, if I remember right. In the
they bring Jensen back.
Okay, yeah. Couldn't remember who it was or whatever. I was just checking in intermittently, and I saw that, and I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah, so much has gone on today. It's hard to keep
a lot to take in. A lot to take in.
So much. But it's nice I know Dan and I have him as like a QB2 in a big money super flex. And then I don't know about you guys, but I have competitive teams where I made some strong moves for those Tampa Bay guys at the end of last year to make runs. So it's nice that didn't just go to waste. The Leonard Fournette moves, the Mike Evans, like Brady. I got a couple stacks to make a run there. So it's nice that those still have value and those teams are competitive again. So I'm sure a lot of guys by now, you hope that nobody's cut Brady off their roster already, because those people will probably be a little bitter right now. But we'll come back to these dominoes. Like we said, there's a lot of them that fell today. But we definitely want to target you did so well in the combine. We definitely want to get your input. Obviously, all your experience in Dynasty, your success. We got to talk rookies. So let's start with the 101. It's not like the previous years where everybody's got that, the same guy in the top slot. Give us your thoughts on or who you have currently at the 101 and if that's changed recently.
Yeah, no, I still have Traylon Burks at my 101. I do think Breece Hall has made a really good case. He tested better athletically than I did anticipate. I thought he'd be roughly around a 4.5, like maybe like high 4.4s kind of guy. I still do not believe that he ran a 4.39, but I think he probably ran like mid to low 4.4s, which is still like very good. I mean, a really good profile. He's not someone that I look at and I'm like, wow, this guy's going to be a superstar running back, but I feel like I can projectively expect him to be a very good running back. And similar to how I viewed someone like Javonte Williams coming out last year is how I'm going to view Breece Hall. So he's going to be in the same tier as Traylon. I just personally have Traylon higher. He's someone that historically, these big wide receivers, and he's likely to get first-round draft capital. Those guys historically have done very well, especially with the type of profile that he's had with the production. He's been efficient in college. He's looked good. I know he didn't test out athletically well, but his in-game speed is unbelievable. He reminds me similar to AJ Brown, maybe a little bit less refined, but he does other things a little bit better than AJ Brown in terms of, I think he just has better natural hands, able to do better in contest situations than AJ Brown. And he's someone that, can be versatile as well. He was a punt returner as a freshman at 225 pounds. You don't see that happening. This guy's a freak. And I think he's going to be a superstar wide receiver. So I'm pretty confident in him. And when I'm looking at my rankings, I know a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on first or second year production. I just want to look at, okay, if I'm looking back 3, 4, 5 years from now, who's the guy that's going to have the most value at this point? And I think that Treylon Burks is that guy that I can most confidently project to have a long career in the NFL.
Where do you think he goes? Or where do you think he goes, and where do you want him to go?
I think he's gonna go top 20. Where I would like him to go, as a Cardinals fan, I'd love him to come here, but I don't know if he's gonna fall. But I think there's a couple teams that strike me as intriguing in terms of just like fit wise. I want these good wide receiver prospects coming out to be attached to another good wide receiver. We've historically seen 11 of the past 15 wide receivers. By the way, I haven't looked at the 2021 season, but this would be like 2018 to 2020. 11 of the top 15 wide receivers had another wide receiver alongside of them in terms of fantasy scoring. So we want another good wide receiver alongside them. So I think the Jets would be number one. I think him and Elijah Moore would be a dynamic duo. They do have somewhat of an overlapping skill set, but I do think those two would work well together. Another one would be the Eagles as well. I think him and Devontae Smith actually complement each other very well. Obviously, I know a lot of people are talking about Dallas over there, and I do think like that would be fun, but I just don't know if he's going to make it there. So I looked at some research over just like historically top 10 picks at wide receiver. And, you're getting 5 times more wide receivers that weigh 210 plus pounds versus sub 190 pound wide receivers are getting drafted top 10. So I do think, even though mocks are having him slide a bit more, I do think he's definitely in play for top 10 just based on his size and what historically the NFL is looking for at the wide receiver position.
And what about Vegas, Dalton? That seems like that would be a nice landing spot for him as well.
I'm a Brian Edwards truther, so no, but yeah, I do think that actually be a good one. I think that Derek Carr does do well with his wide receivers there, but I think they have a lot of weapons there too. I like Renfro and a lot of things there, so I'm not sure if they necessarily like need a wide receiver, but I would like that fit a lot because I think there's a lot of opportunity in that offense. Mm-hmm.
And talk to us about Drake London, who I know you have some very strong feelings about as well. Is he your wide receiver 2 right now, and would he be your number 3 overall?
Yeah, he would. So I think the top, it's funny. I think there's a nice little tier of like 4 guys at the top, and Drake London is in there. I'm very confident about him too. I mean, his production profile is very good. I know a lot of people are worried about, he could be the next N'Keal Harry in the way that his skill set is, but when I'm watching him, I get like Mike Evans, T. Higgins vibes when I'm watching him play. And then when I see him catch the ball and the way he's able to maneuver after the catch, I mean, there's very rare times where in the short parts of the field and maybe even intermediates where the first guy is able to tackle him. And I think that's a very important skill set for the NFL. It's a very translatable skill. So he does a lot of things well that I think will translate him to next level. He's going to get first round capital. He has that production profile as well. He has that size. He's going to be 21 years old. It would be an outlier for him not to hit at the next level. And, that's the type of wide receiver you want to be chasing, especially for upside for future wide receiver 1 season. So he's someone that I'm really attracted to his profile and a lot of things that are going to come out of it. I mean, he's basically a locked in first rounder. So everything's going to be checking the box for him.
All right. Who do you have at 4 to round out that top tier?
Garrett Wilson. So I really, really like him. He's one of my, I usually don't like, not that I don't like lighter guys. They just don't have as much upside historically in terms of perennial wide receiver 1 seasons, but he's someone that would be one of my favorite sub 190 wide receivers I've ever done. Like he reminds me of Calvin Ridley, but he's better after the catch. And one thing I'm always looking for in wide receivers is after the catch, he's fast. He's able to like maneuver, cut corners really quickly. And he's just a great route runner. I think his floor is going to be really good. I think a projectable wide receiver season that we could see from him would be like similar to like Devontae Smith last year. I think that's kind of what we're going to see out of Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to be just one of the best wide receivers in the league at his prime. He's going to be able to do a lot of things well. I feel very confident about those 3 wide receivers, and I know it's not like I don't have anything like super hot take because I know it's consensus, but I really do feel really good about these 3. And outside of that, I think that's where things get kind of interesting. But I'm really, really feel good about them.
So you see a kind of a tier break after 104.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Kenneth Walker, a guy who a lot of people are considering at the 102 right now?
Yeah, I'm fading him right now. And it's not because I don't like him. I actually think he's a really good running back. But for fantasy, I mean, we want players who can catch the ball. And when we're looking at guys who are really good running backs, I mean, obviously Derrick Henry's just an absolute anomaly just because of how much volume he gets and the touchdowns and then the way they're able to utilize him. But I mean, I think what we want to look for is what is the upside of some running backs who we know are good, but don't have that fantasy upside. I would say Josh Jacobs in his first 2 years, Nick Chubb. So we're kind of looking at the range where it's like, we know Nick Chubb's one of the best running backs, right? But his fantasy projection is roughly like low end RB1 territory. Josh Jacobs' his first couple years, obviously this year is different, but he was like a RB2 or whatnot. So where's my upside with my running back? Like where's my upside with Kenneth Walker? And I think that's the question for me. Obviously, if he gets round 1 draft capital, cool, amazing. But I'd rather have more projectable receiving upside for him, and he just didn't show that in college. So for me, he's probably someone I'm likely to have no shares of, and it's not because I don't think he's a good player, just because as an asset in fantasy, I want players who are going to score me fantasy points. And I think based on his cost versus what his actual production is going to be, there's a gap there for me that I'm likely to fade.
Where would you feel comfortable taking him if he slid? There's got to be a point.
Yeah. So for me, it would depend on where he gets drafted. So if he gets drafted round 1, I'm more prone to take him like mid to late first. Otherwise, I'm probably just going to fade him late first. But for me, it's like when we get to that point, like I want to feel confident when I'm spending a first round pick on a rookie. I want to feel confident that I can go ahead and project this guy to be a potential superstar, have the upside or the value increase in dynasty to where next year this guy's a much more valuable asset. And I just don't know if I really see that with him. So I would say like late first, like for me, once we get to like in a 1 QB, maybe like 109, 110, 111, but he's going to be gone before then. So I'm not going to be getting him at that spot. So that's probably where I feel comfortable.
Would that be your pivot to 2023? First,
I would pivot earlier. So after the top 4, I'd pivot.
I'm asking for a friend who's actually in this corner.
Yeah,
right
there.
I would say that I have maybe 2 other guys who I would not want to pivot off. I'd want a little bit of exposure to, and I'm interested your opinion on Chris Olave right now.
Yeah.
And then
seems
I think
polarizing.
we all like your opinion on Jameson Williams.
I love Williams.
Why don't we start with Williams? Is Williams out of that top tier because of the injury?
Kind of, yes. His size as well. So I think his profile is a little more volatile just because of the type of receiver he is. But he has the potential to be a Deshaun Jackson level game breaker. My concern with him is going to be, is the target share going to be there? And I think we saw one thing with Waddle in his last year in college was in those 4 games in his last year, he was getting targeted a ton. And I think his profile like reminds me of Jameson Williams in a similar sense, where I don't think he's going to be utilized in the same way that Waddle was, to where he was a target hog. But if someone's drafting him first round and he goes to the right team, I think he has the chance to develop a lot more than what we showed on film. Like every single time you're seeing it, he's breaking a touchdown every single time. And it was like mind blowing, like how teams like almost like knew it was coming and he was still able to do it. His acceleration is elite. Like if he tested at the combine, he's probably like the fastest wide receiver there. And the fact that he's still getting first round, draft capital, likely even coming off that injury. I'm very confident on him. I think he's going to be a very good player. My main question with him is where's the upside with there? Is he going to be a really good player who's going to, be volatile, or is he going to be able to, projectably command target shares to like an elite level every week? And I guess that's where like he doesn't fit in that top tier for me, but I could easily be convinced to put him in that top tier. He's like that one guy that I really, really like, and I think he's gonna be a really good player that I just am kind of like, fluctuating on between how I feel about him.
Are you kind of taking a like, what's your expectation for him for 2022? Is it kind of like put him on your taxi squad and take the L for the first half of the season, or what's your kind of approach with that?
So I think a lot of it's going to come down to news and how he's progressing. I know he was ahead of schedule, which is obviously positive news. And we've seen like recently in the past few years how quickly a lot of these athletes have recovered from injuries that usually have longer timetables. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that he is ready for week 1. So like if I'm drafting him, like I want him to increase in value heading into year 2, and I still think he's going to be able to do that. So I wouldn't draft him just to bench him. Like I would draft him thinking that he's a really good player who has dynamic capabilities. And it can be an absolute game breaker. So he's a fun player. His profile is not someone that I normally would target, but I think last year I was a little too low on someone like Jalen Waddle with that type of profile. And I want to make sure that I'm correct and right on it and not too low on someone like that this year. And he's someone that fits in that same realm. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's pivot over to Superflex and let's talk the quarterbacks, because obviously if we're talking single quarterback, we're not real interested in any of these rookies. But what about in Superflex? Where are you slotting rookie quarterbacks in? Like who's your top one, and what tier are you putting them in?
It has to be Malik Willis. I mean, his rushing profiles is elite. I mean, 875 rushing yards the last 2 years. I mean, we don't need it. We don't need a quarterback who's amazing on the field. I mean, just look at Jalen Hurts, for example, right? He's not the best quarterback, but he produces fantasy points week in, week out ever since he started last year as a rookie. And this year he's been a top 10, even top 5 in points in terms of quarterback scoring. So I'm very confident in his floor. I'm very confident in the type of production you're getting. And there's really only a limited number of quarterback assets in which provide this dual threat ability. I mean, if you aren't able to run the ball, you're on the outside. You really have to be like almost like a Joe Burrow type of passer, Tom Brady type of passer in order to keep up with these guys. And even then, it's the Josh Allens and these guys who are really able to still beat them on the next level, because if they do put up the passing that these other guys who have that passing stats, but they also add the legs on top of it, they're just putting themselves on a different tier that those guys can't reach. And so for me, I have Malik Willis as my 101 right now in Superflex, just because I'm pretty confident that he's going to get top 10 draft capital. Now, if he doesn't, that's going to change. But all the signs are looking like, I'm not going to say a lock, but it looks very likely that Malik Willis is going to be top 10 pick in this class. And I don't care about how he's going to project, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. I want a guy over the next 3-4 years for my quarterback who I know is going to get elite production. You can always sell quarterbacks at a premium in Superflex. So it kind of goes different against my philosophy when it comes to one QB, where I just want like the best guys. When it comes to quarterbacks in Superflex, it's really hard to get these kind of guys. So I want one that can take me to the next level over the next few years. And if he does end up being good and he ends up, having a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson type upside and ceiling, like, I mean, you're locked into top 5 overall, player in all of Superflex. So I kind of like the floor and upside there with Malik Willis.
Makes sense. How about going down the quarterback class this year? Who do you have second, and where are you sliding them in?
Yeah, I'm at Matt Corral number 2. So I think a lot of things with Corral that the media hasn't caught up to is just because there's been a lot of injuries. So what we're seeing with the draft and how mock drafts are going, and how Daniel Jeremiah's and the McShays and the Kuipers of the world, how they're talking about this class is what they're hearing right now from teams. And teams have seen, Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett and these guys at the Senior Bowl. They've seen him at the Combine. And really the only interaction they've had with Corral has been through interviews at the Combine. He plans on, throwing and running around at his pro day. So I think it's one of those things where heading into the end of the year, Corral was almost viewed as the QB1, like kind of in a tier with like maybe Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett. And we just haven't had that news cycle yet on Matt Corral to kind of bump him up in that same range. So I think we're just kind of like waiting on that to happen for him. And he did offer actually a pretty somewhat intriguing, rushing profile as well too. Be some level of like maybe like a Justin Herbert type runner where he's getting, 15, 20 rushing yards a game. Like he offers that type of upside. He's not someone like I'm super confident on projecting, because one thing I've realized over the past few years is I suck at evaluating quarterbacks. So I just want to like take my evaluation process out, just focus on draft capital, focus on rushing ability, and then, whatever happens. So he does have that rushing floor, and I think he's going to get draft capital. I don't know if he's getting top 10, top 15, maybe top 20, but right now he's my quarterback too, based on a couple of those things.
Guys, let's give a bit of love to our friends over at the FFPC, our partners that make this possible. Guys, if you play on the FFPC, smash the like button. If you're playing Dynasty right now and you're dropping trades like it's going out of styles, like Theo, the OG Fantasy, does on the reg, smash the like, guys. If you're not, at Goat District on Twitter will get you an exclusive sign-up bonus. You see it on the screen, guys. $1 million grand prize. Almost $6 million in prize money. Right now, you got an early bird special. You guys can save a bunch of money with those registrations for the tournament. Never too early. Best ball. Do you guys know how many it's at? What is it? Like, if I'm guessing, it's 500 around entries left. Last time I checked was 7.
Okay, there's 662 out of 1,100 and something. So it's not even half full, and
25K, guys.
It will run through the NFL draft, so it needs to start filling up a lot faster, or there could be some overlay there. So something to think about.
We love overlay.
Yeah, definitely.
We love overlay. So, guys, check out the best balls, the big tournaments, the Dynasty startups are going to be starting soon, but you can still get your orphans. And like I said, if you're on the FFPC, smash the like, let us know. And guys, drop your trades, man. Let us know your trades in the comments, in the chat, wherever you can, Twitter. We love to see your Dynasty trades and see what's happening out there in Dynasty land right now.
All right.
I have one more rookie question for
490 out of 600. I'm sorry, they've sold 490, 662 spots left, so they're not even halfway.
I thought it was actually more than that, so I'm glad you cleared that up for me, Dan. Thank you very much.
There you go.
I want to touch on one more rookie question or two with Dalton. Do you have an RB3?
Yes.
I'm assuming Walker's your RB2, despite his flaws. No.
Nice.
Okay, well, who is your RB2 then?
Okay, so I've been really debating. I really want to see Isaiah Spiller run at his pro day. I know a lot of people have kind of fallen off on him. Apparently, he didn't interview too well at the combine, and there's kind of those concerns with him. So from a draft capital perspective, he is probably going to be like a back end second, early third. And if he falls to the third round, like that's going to make me think a little bit different about him. So I do like him there. He's not locked in there, but there's a guy who I really like, and he could be as high as my RB2, and it's going to be Rachaad White. I really, really like Rachaad White in this class. So he just offers like everything you're looking for in a fantasy running back. Great pass catcher. He had a really good production profile, even though he's older. I know he went to junior college, had a good production there. And then ever since he went to ASU, he was averaging like over 100 yards per game, was catching the ball, was very efficient. When I watch him, he reminds me of like Le'Veon Bell in a sense, like not as like a powerful Le'Veon Bell, but he's very smooth. He's really good at running in between tackles, very natural with the ball in his hands as a pass catcher. So he reminds me of that type of style of play. And I think that, teams are going to like him enough to where I don't think people are projecting him high enough. I think he could actually go round 2. I think at this point, I'd be almost more surprised if he didn't go round 2 than if he did go round 2. And I think heading into the draft, like he's someone that people have been talking up a lot, but he reminds me of how people viewed Michael Carter last year, but like better, and he's probably gonna get better draft capital. And we saw how good Michael Carter was this year. So assuming he goes a situation where there's opportunity, I don't see why he can't develop into a 3-down back. He has that workhorse profile. My biggest concern with him is his age And, he doesn't have this full profile. I think we only have roughly 15 games on him. But again, he's someone I do really like. And based on cost right now is probably my favorite just player in this draft based on cost.
Yeah.
And then
that makes sense.
Do you have any second round type guys that you feel super strong about that you're recommending people draft?
Not yet. So I haven't done my full evaluation yet, but usually at this point, I usually have somewhat of an idea of guys that I'm pinpointing based on values. And this year, I don't feel extremely strong about any of them. And I think it just references to the type of draft class I think it is and why I'm more prone to just invest in those top guys this year. I do think guy like Sky Moore is interesting, George Pickens, Justin Ross. I do want to see where they or when they get drafted, and especially Justin Ross for his medicals, because I think his draft capital is gonna really say a lot about that. So he was someone who, as a freshman, had over 4 yards per route run, was the wide receiver 1 in Devy circles. And then obviously he had a potential career ending injury. So for him to even be playing right now is crazy. But that's one guy I'm really curious about to see where he goes. Because if he goes round 2, he's someone I'm probably going to be pretty high on versus consensus just based on that.
Yeah, I think if Ross goes day 3, that kind of says a lot about how teams are feeling about him.
Yeah, for sure. So he'll be a fun one to watch over there. But there's a couple guys that I think over there, and again, I'm not fully into it where I can give 100% concrete opinions on it. But right now, that's kind of where I'm leaning on those guys.
Yeah, I think the depth of this class is going to make it interesting, deep into the draft, right? It's going to keep our attention for sure. Do you guys have any more rookie stuff before we get back to the dominoes?
No, I think we had a lot going on in free agency, so we might want to pivot to that.
All right. Let's start it off in Pittsburgh. I mean, that's one place where they've got some weapons. They have the vacancy at the quarterback position. You're hoping, if you own any of those weapons, that they make a big move. Dalton, Mitch Trubisky, does that ring big move to you? How do you see this playing out in Pittsburgh and affecting the weapons around it? And do you think, this is it? This is their 2022 quarterback, and that's what we got to deal with as owners of these guys.
I mean, can it be any worse than what Big Ben was last year? I mean, honestly though, he was really bad, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating to even watch him last year. So I don't think it got any worse for those guys. And based on what they invested in him, I still think it's possible they do draft a quarterback. But again, I think Trubisky's probably the guy starting there. Mason Rudolph. I mean, this is better than Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins, whoever they could put out there. So, I mean, I don't think you're excited about it, but it's not worse than what it was last year. So, I mean, I'm not downgrading anybody. So I think that's just the way I'm approaching it. And I think from a fantasy perspective, I think, Trubisky actually becomes somewhat interesting because we know he has that rushing ability, and now he has legitimate weapons alongside him. So I think he could be a sneaky little guy this year, Trubisky in fantasy.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if he's progressed as a passer.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a big part of it. But also, as you noticed, his rushing ability, which he was never really allowed to use that much in Chicago with Nagy. Weirdly enough, it was Nagy was no, you're going to be a pocket passer, and it just made no sense whatsoever. And whereas Tomlin has said, hey, we want a quarterback who's mobile, so it kind of tells you he's looking for somebody, he's going to unlock the complete skill set rather than just, try to pigeonhole him in any particular way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good news.
Do you guys think Trubisky's enough to keep these guys? Because I feel like we might get some value now on some of these Pittsburgh weapons now that Trubisky's there. For maybe the non-believers, maybe Deontay drops a bit, or do you think they kind of stay where they are?
I agree with Dalton. I wouldn't move them around at all. I mean, I think that Big Ben.
No, I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm saying, what do you think? The masses, do you think their ADPs do drop a bit with the Trubisky, or do you think it stays? Just that's what Dalton's saying.
I think it's always good. For some reason, I feel like dynasty-wise, Deontay Johnson's production does not match his dynasty value ever. For some reason, I think that you can always kind of feel out the waters. Deontay's never a guy that I think is kind of unattainable, despite putting up great numbers in such a short period of time. I think that Claypool, Dalton, we got to talk to Dalton about Claypool because last time you were on the Goat District pod, we spoke about T. Higgins and Chase Claypool being two guys that you viewed as, very unlikely to miss type guys. And since you said that, T. Higgins went in fuego. We saw him flash as a rookie, but I think that if you talk to serious dynasty players right now, pretty much everybody at least considers T. Higgins in that top, 5 to 8 range for dynasty wide receivers. But Chase Claypool, there's very mixed opinions on right now. So I think some people are willing to sell Chase Claypool for an early second. What is your opinion on Claypool in his fit with Trubisky and just his general value in dynasty? Has anything changed for you?
No, I still think he's a buy heading into this year. We just knew that this situation wasn't going to get any worse than what it was. I mean, historically, guys who do what Claypool did as a rookie, they tend to be pretty good. Like a comp I want to give him is like a lesser version, like 80% of DK Metcalf, right? And I know DK Metcalf isn't exactly like this propped up dynasty asset right now just because of what happened. But if we look at like a year ago when DK was in the middle of shredding in a second year, I think you can get like 80 to 85% of that with Claypool. And right now he's obviously not, valued at that. And I think people are kind of, concerned about specific types of players like that, where he's not the most consistent player. And, a lot of people want the Deontay Johnsons and these guys who every week they're getting, massive target shares and, they're doing that. But a lot of players, they aren't consistent in fantasy. And I don't really care about how consistent you are. I just want to score fantasy points over an entire season. I think Claypool has that upside to where you can see these big games out of him on a every other week basis. He didn't really score that many touchdowns this year. That was one thing. So if you look at like his yardage, and like he was almost very similar to what he was as a rookie. And as a rookie, he scored like, over 9 touchdowns. And this year, I think he scored like 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he scored like 0 or 1 touchdown. It was
11. It was 11 as a
no.
rookie, down to 2 this year.
Yeah.
And you nailed it though. The targets were exactly the same.
Yeah. So that's the main thing. Is it just like a lot of people just will look at how he finished at the end of the year in terms of a full fantasy perspective. And I don't want to bring Kyle Pitts into it, but it's the same thing, right? Where you're getting a lot of yards. Like those are the things that are predictable. He was efficient as a rookie. He's the most efficient. He's more than efficient than Deontay as a rookie when he was a rookie. And this year, we saw Deontay blow up, and Deontay's going to be that, that safety valve. He's going to be getting more targets than Claypool, but they're going to work alongside each other very well. And again, I mentioned like having another good wide receiver alongside you is just historically, we've just seen 2 guys complement each other and finish in the top 24. I mean, I think it's over. You get like 4 to 6 wide receiver pairings a year in the top 24. So those are the type of guys you want on your team. He has the historical rookie breakout where I did an article on 100% of players to weigh 210 pounds had over 8 yards per target as a rookie and had over 80 targets. 100% of them had at least 1 wide receiver season or 1 season over 230 fantasy points. 10 out of those 15 players, 2/3 of them had multiple wide receiver 1 seasons. And, that's based on data up to 2017. So if you look at some guys recently who have done that, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin was one of them. DK Metcalf was another. AJ Brown was another. Deebo Samuel was the one who just hit. T. Higgins was another one. And now it's Claypool. So it's like you're betting against history and he would be a historical outlier if he didn't do this. And it was the same thing with I'm going to compare his profile similar to Deebo Samuel's. Obviously completely different players, but Deebo Samuel, great rookie year. Better than Claypool's, yes. But heading after his second year, there was some injury concerns. There was, is Ayuk going to be the guy? What's going to go on with Kittle? And there was a lot of questions about how or what Deebo Samuel was. But if you looked and you took out all the noise and you just look at history and how his historical rookie profile compared just to every wide receiver that's had success in the past 20 years, like you would have known that Deebo Samuel was just a depressed asset because of a lot of things that really didn't matter. And I think we saw him blow up. I'm not sure we're going to see Claypool go to that same extent, but you can get similar type of, this value gain from Claypool right now, because I think you're buying him closer to his floor than what we're getting at a ceiling, especially heading into next year. I mean, mind you, this guy is only had 2 years in the league. Like, this guy has a full career ahead of him. And usually you don't get a lot of, chances and opportunities to almost like buy low on guys. And I think this is one of them, one of those unique scenarios where you can and expect like a much better year 3 from Claypool.
JD always talks about buying low on the GOAT District. If you're looking to pivot, it doesn't seem like you're overly high on the back end of the first round right now in this draft class. If you can't trade into the 2023 first round picks, where would you pivot to a Claypool? Would you move like the 109 for him, or are you trying to go a little lower than that?
Yeah, so I think you. So one thing that I've noticed is a lot of people share the same sentiment about this class. So I think there's like this big tier, right? And I haven't gauged the trade market yet, but my assumption would be that if you sent a late first, you could probably get Claypool. I think once you get to that early second, that's probably when you get some pushback. But my thing is, I would probably prefer guys like, depending on my team, like maybe a Rashad White, Isaiah Spiller, depending on what happens with him. Kenneth Walker, I think, is kind of in that range. I'd prefer Claypool over him, but right when you get to that range is where I'd start to pivot. I'm not sure if I prefer guys like Pickens or even like Jamison Williams or Sky Moore or really any of these guys to Claypool. I mean, I could see Williams, end up being the better asset, but historically those guys, those big alpha wide receivers are the ones that have that, that perennial wide receiver one upside. And you really have to be an outlier just so good, like an Antonio Brown almost, just to be able to buck that trend.
I think that makes sense. I also feel like I'm talking to Davis Maddock from about 5 or 6 years ago. It was all team big wide receiver back then.
Yeah, I'm still on it. I may be starting to pivot a little bit after last year, but yeah. I think that's kind of where I still trend for the most part.
I still have a major weakness for a big heavy wide receiver. Those guys are just, they're fantastic. I mean,
as I'm wearing my Christian Kirk jersey,
right? Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, that's newsy, so we get it. What do you think about Amari Cooper? Let's talk about that. He gets traded to Cleveland. What do you think that does for his value? Anybody else in the Cleveland offense? Does he help? Does he hurt? And what are you thinking about Baker?
I've always liked Amari Cooper. I know he's kind of gotten like a lot of hate and a lot of shade, but I've always liked him. Like you know what you're getting out of him. He's not going to be this superstar wide receiver one. I know he's had some stretches where like, holy cow, this guy's good. But I mean, he's been a consistent like wide receiver too. And I think we're getting to the point where I don't know if his situation's necessarily like getting worse. Obviously, he went from a really good offense, but he's going to where he's going to be the wide receiver one there. And Baker's also a guy that I think is undervalued as well. Like he's someone who, if we take a lot of the context from, especially what happened, at the end of last season and just kind of like understand that this guy should not have been playing football. Like Baker Mayfield should not have been playing football. He was playing hurt. So that's why we saw him play extremely bad. And that's why there's like some recency bias about Baker. But historically, I mean, he had one of like the best like rookie seasons from a quarterback of all time. And he hasn't been bad. Sure, he may not be the greatest quarterback, but someone that I've compared him to in terms of like a career perspective is someone like Derek Carr, where he's just good enough to keep you as your quarterback for a while. Like I think if you're the Browns, you have to find somebody like a Deshaun Watson level, or have, a top 5 pick to where you can feel confident this guy's better than Baker Mayfield. But on the trade, or for the most part on the trade market and the free agent market, you're not going to find somebody who's better than Baker Mayfield. So right now, I think he's an amazing buy in Dynasty. I don't know you're getting like amazing production, but you can get QB2 production from him, and you're probably getting it pretty cheap to where that can be QB production for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And the Browns are also in a scenario too where they already have Amari Cooper, right? We know Jarvis Landry is going to be gone, but they're also in a position to where they do have a very good team around them. And it looks like one of the biggest weaknesses right now is another wide receiver. So they could reasonably draft, a Traylon Burks, or, a Drake London or Garrett Wilson at 13 overall. And I think if that were to happen, then everyone would start to be on Baker a little more. But if we can just read the tea leaves and look at what they need and the things, like, I think it's very likely they're going to be drafting, one of these top wide receivers in this draft, whether it's first round, second round, third round. And Baker Mayfield coming back healthy, like, he's not going to be, worse than what he was at the end of last year. I think we're going to get, closer to what we saw in his first or second year. We've all seen Baker Mayfield do well, surprisingly, without Odell Beckham. His splits are very odd, and I really don't know what to gather from that. But I think it's at least interesting that, he's performed like a pretty good quarterback when it hasn't been the case. And especially in his rookie year too, when he didn't have Odell, was his best season to this point. So, I mean, Baker's a guy that is going to get a lot of hate, and there's a lot of recency bias there. But I think at the end of the day, he's someone that can be a quarterback the next 4, 5, 6 years in the league that, is giving you some sort of production you're not excited about, but he's there.
I think the Amari, I'm actually surprised that there's been so much kind of negativity towards Amari's value going to Cleveland. It's very weird. We've seen wide receivers do a lot better being traded to other teams than signing as free agents. So he's got that going for him. And I think he could be stepping into a really, really high target share.
Mm-hmm.
He could be, even if they draft Drake London, you might see a situation where Amari Cooper is getting 25% of the targets. And I think that he can run a varied amount of routes. I think he can beat you in different ways where you're not asking Baker to do anything crazy. And I think that Amari could end up returning. I certainly think he's going to return value based on his current ADP. And I would actually bet that as the summer moves along, his ADP gets a little bit better, just as we see the role, and we, obviously hear the coaching staff talking him up, all those little things that should not move ADP, but they do. I think that right now, if you're drafting, I think the positives outweigh the negatives just in terms of what his role could be. I'm interested to hear Dan's thoughts on this, and JD's as well, but it just seems like he's getting beat up in terms of Odell didn't do well with Baker, so therefore Amari's not going to do well with Baker, and I think that's just the wrong approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I'm sitting here in the 8th round of an NFFC draft, Theo. Middle of the 8th round, Amari Cooper still on the board.
That's unbelievable. That's
Tyler
unbelievable.
Lockett still on the board. So
it's crazy. That's crazy. And going behind Allen Robinson
that's unbelievable.
Is a little nuts right now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. I think it's a perception thing, right? We talk about it often. The jerseys, we have these colors imprinted in our brains and what they're associated with. And when you think Cleveland, they're a bottom 5 offense in passing attempts per game. You don't think of an aerial assault when it comes to them. And you look at Cooper. I mean, last year he only gave you 4 top 24 weeks out of 15. He's very inconsistent. Again, that's people's perceptions when it comes to Cooper. So I think it's just you put all that together, and it's the perfect mix to offer value for a player like that. That, like you said, we talk about on this show, Dan, is like the narrow target tree. What do we call you, Dan? Like the Mr. Miyagi of these little target trees. But it's true, man. It's something that, you got to pay attention to that. And if he's going there, and I mean, they signed Njoku back, but I think that's just, because at the time they probably didn't have anything else in that offense, right?
Well, yeah, and they just don't throw that much to the tight ends. I mean, their tight ends don't run a ton of routes. When they run a route, there's a decent chance they'll throw it to them, but they just don't run that many routes. And Cooper's going to be out in a lot of routes. And then the same draft also brings up the situation in Seattle. We've got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And it looks like Metcalf seems to be holding his value. But as you can see here, I mean, Tyler Lockett available in the 8th round of an NFFC, where you're starting 3 wide receivers every week, plus you have a flex as well. These drafts tend to go very wide receiver heavy. And, for both these guys to be sitting here, I think is borderline crazy. I mean, I'm looking at Cooper and I'm looking at Lockett, and I'm like, which one do I want?
Yeah.
Crazy. That's crazy.
This draft is a little surprising.
And there's a lot of really good players in here, so it's not like this is not like a soft room. So I'm a little shocked as well at where these guys are going, but that kind of shows you where their value is falling to. And translated over to Dynasty. I mean, Lockett and Cooper make an offer. You might be able to get them cheap.
For real.
I've been trying to get Lockett. I think that's a great call.
What have you tried? Like, is there a specific pick that you tried, like mid second, late second?
I've mostly late seconds. Just seeing if anybody wants to get out of him. I think that the general consensus is the second round is so strong because there's so many wide receivers. The wide receivers all ran great 40 times. People are getting excited about the guys like Watson and Pickens and all these guys that could potentially fall the second round, but nobody wants to seem to want to pivot off of Lockett at this point. I just think that Dan's brought up the fact that Lockett has this contract, which will make him very difficult to move. You also have the chance that if DK Metcalf is moved, then Lockett would fall into a potentially huge target share as the undisputed wide receiver one there. If Lockett's just such a steady player. It reminds me a little bit of the Brandon Cook situation last summer, where people get a little tired of a guy, they don't like the team situation, and then he crushes ADP. I think Lockett could end up being a guy like that this year, especially if he's going to fall down. I mean, Dan, by the time we're drafting this summer for NFFC, that'll be corrected. But the fact that he's going as a wide receiver 3, a low end wide receiver 3, is pretty surprising.
Right, exactly.
What if Watson goes to Seattle?
I think Watson's going to be. I think it's going to be Carolina or New Orleans. I think that those are the places that Watson wants to go to.
Yeah, there are reports that that's the only places he's considering. He's told everybody else no thanks.
Nice. Yeah. So
which makes sense. I mean, if Russ wanted out of Seattle, I mean that kind of tells you that
who wants to go rebuild.
Yeah, it tells you that why would Deshaun want to go there? I mean, one of the reasons why Deshaun got unhappy in Houston was because nobody was listening to him, when he was talking about the roster and what kind of players he wanted. And obviously that's the same complaint that Russ Wilson's had in Seattle. So, to me, that one was like, that's never going to happen.
I hope we get some closure with the Watson situation this week. I mean, I think we've had such a run of news, but I would love to see something. And I wonder what that final price tag is going to be. I think it's going to be potentially staggering how much those teams give up for Watson. And in my opinion, he's worth it. I mean, we see the contract. Dan brings up the contract that Kirk Cousins got this week. And we talk about, Dalton brings up the fact that, Malik Willis, it's a scarcity thing. And, it's such a scarce position. And Watson is potentially, anytime he steps on the field, he's potentially the best NFL quarterback there is on any given Sunday. And he's still young. So I think that you'll see one of those two teams just give up a complete bag.
And shout out to Kirk Cousins too for being the absolute god of just holding teams over the barrel. And these 1-year contracts, everybody was like, "Oh, why would he needs to sign a long term?" No, he doesn't. He with his guaranteed money that he's getting off this new deal, he will have made almost $250 million playing quarterback in the NFL.
Damn.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, but it's believable. The guys, anytime you're talking about quarterbacks, the guys, he's a viable starter. It's scarcity.
Right. And he's just good enough. he does a lot of things well. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, he also has some serious, a couple serious flaws that just make it very unlikely that he's ever going to be a Super Bowl quarterback. And, yet he's made that kind of money and he still has plenty more career to go. I mean, that guy could end up making $500 million by the time he gets out of the league.
For real. For
he's
real.
He's a clean living guy off the field.
Right.
Yeah.
Time.
Teams love that.
Yep. For sure.
He also has been miserable in primetime games and still has made all this money. It's like the guy. What was the Monday Night Football streak he had? It was he
horrible.
lost like every Monday Night Football game. I think he won one.
It's
really bad.
There's a lot of kind of weird variance there or whatever, but still, and he's gotten better at the primetime thing of late, but still, it's crazy, But the thing is he's good enough that you're like. He's so hard to pivot off, and then he got going with the Vikings with these 2-year deals and 3-year deals, with all this guaranteed money, where it's like you can't, it's so expensive to get off of him as far as the dead cap you'd have to eat that you just basically to get off of his contract, you're basically saying we're gonna trash and rebuild here, and for a quarterback of that caliber to say that's what you have to do. It's a lot easier to say, well, maybe we can make the playoffs if we can just put a couple more good players around him, extend him for another year so we can lower his cap hit, and it's just like you keep getting sucked down this hole endlessly. So
shout out to Wheeler.
Yeah.
The Cousins is a healthy Sam Bradford.
That's a good one. That's
exactly it.
Shout out to the chat
who also, had his time in the sun in Minnesota.
All right, guys, let's hit my favorite position and talk about running backs. Dan, these two guys are usually in our range when we like to draft. And Connor was a guy that paid off really nicely last year. And you were hoping that he would remain in Arizona and they would say adios to Edmonds. But how do you? I mean, Connor got 3 years, got a pretty nice contract. He's going to be probably the lead guy there. Maybe they bring someone in, obviously, to replace Edmonds. But how do you see this playing out? Dalton, I'll go to you first with Connor. And then on the other end, how do you feel about Edmonds ending up in Miami?
Yeah, no, it's exciting for everyone involved. I'm an Eno Benjamin fan. I'm hoping that, they don't draft anyone there. Hopefully he can take over that Edmonds role. I do think he has that profile for it and can be that RB2 that can complement Connor really well. But the biggest thing with Connor, and obviously just running backs in general, is just staying healthy. And I was actually genuinely surprised at the receiving upside that he offered in that offense last year. So he projectably can be the high end RB2, low end RB1 next year. Obviously, we're going to get some of that touchdowns. I mean, he's not going to score 20 touchdowns again. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe he does. I don't know, but
it's unlikely.
But the thing
Kyler's healthy, it's unlikely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really curious to see where his ADP ends up. I have a feeling it's gonna go pretty higher than I want, maybe third round. I think he may go in that range, and then at that point, I'm probably fading him. But he does have a lot of qualities that you do want in a running back. It's probably going to be a good offense, and assuming they don't draft anyone crazy, which
what's their draft? I was trying to look up because their cap space isn't that much. It's under 10.
No, so they probably wouldn't sign anyone. It'd probably be a draft pick. So they have their first, second, third, I'm pretty sure. And they're picking 23rd. So that's roughly where they're going.
And I personally receivers, so
yeah, they could. I mean, I think Rashad White, I mean, for some reason, Kime loves his ASU guys. He had Harry top 5 on his board in that class. He drafted Eno Benjamin. I mean, I don't know how they felt about Ayuk, but Rashad White's another ASU guy. So I think they kind of get a closer look at some of the hometown guys. And I wonder, it would actually fit, he would complement Connor, pretty well, in my opinion. But I just don't know if that's something that happens there or whether they ride on Eno. But sorry, to answer your second question on Edmonds, I like that fit a lot. I mean, anytime you're going to a team where you have the opportunity to be at minimum, like a committee guy, Mike McDaniel's done some great work in the run game with the Niners there. So that's a system in which I'm always targeting running backs, and hopefully he can bring some of the same success to Miami. That obviously remains to be seen. But I mean, Edmonds has that fun profile where you're probably not getting RB1 production out of him, but he's a reliable RB2 who can catch the ball, do a lot of things. The question is can he be that workhorse for them consistently? I don't know, and I don't know if they're going to invest more. So that's my main concern.
Who's the competition? There is Gaskin still there, and and was it Ahmed?
Yeah, and I think Malcolm Brown's just sitting on the bench over there somewhere. He always seems to find his way in the fold somehow. But I think the draft could be a potential scenario for them. I don't know. Like those are both scenarios where I don't think we have the full story on it yet, and I'm a little bit wary about drafting those guys right now with that. There could obviously be some value if you are buying them and nothing happens, but I think they tend to decrease in value if something happens, and the time to buy them was likely yesterday.
Before, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Edmonds, I got a whole ton of last year while he was on the shelf injured. And, pretty much in any league where I had, the extra roster spots or, I wasn't competing or whatever, any way that I could get Edmonds on my team during that time I was doing it because I knew he was going to be a free agent. It was and Connor, of course, was showing out really nice. So knowing where the Cardinals were going to be on salary cap, I knew Edmonds and Connor were likely to split up. Yeah. So I was like, I was grabbing all the Connor I could. I was grabbing all the Edmonds I could. Of course, Connor was easy to get before the season.
Yeah.
Once the season started, it was like you couldn't really get him anymore. But, I'd gotten a fair amount of Connor before the season. Then I got Edmonds during the season. So now I have a good boatload of both. And I'm probably going to look to sell a little bit of Connor, a little bit of Edmonds right now. Just because, right now Connor's got that backfield to himself is, kind of what the narrative is. And Edmonds has the backfield to himself is kind of what the narrative is. So, if anybody is feeling that's the way it is, then that's my huckleberry there.
We love it.
Yep. Yeah, I like Dalton's take on Connor. I think Connor's has a real chance to improve his receiving numbers. I think with Edmonds out of the way, and he had 37 receptions last year. I think we could easily see Connor get into the 50 to 55 catch range this year, just based on familiarity with the offense and usage and all that kind of stuff. And I think that would kind of offset a good amount of the touchdowns. But I think if he's healthy, he's the kind of guy that he takes a lot of pressure off Kyler around the goal line. He's so efficient as a goal line runner. But it's hard to predict touchdowns, but he'll be right up there around the the 9-10 range. And if he gets his receptions up, then I think he could be a value. And Edmonds, what a great landing spot. I think that you can't underestimate the fact that it's one of Mike McDaniel's first moves as Dolphins head coach. We have the NFL teams basically can lie to us all year long, and the only times they really tell the truth are the beginning of free agency and the NFL draft. And he went out and got Chase Edmonds, a guy who they played against twice a year in the NFC West. And I think that there's a chance that Edmonds could be an RB2 this year. I don't think he's got much. He's probably, like Dan said, it's probably, if somebody wants to pay you for Edmonds, it's probably the best move in Dynasty, because I don't see him as the kind of guy that could crack into the high-end RB2 range, based on what he can handle. But I think that you could talk about a guy that's going to be extremely useful flex or RB2 type player for you based on his receiving ability. I always liked his talent in Arizona, and I think it'll be interesting with Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, I think with Edmonds, the sweet spot for him is probably 150, 200 carries over the season. If he gets more than 200 carries, that kid's going to break.
And just going back to your James Conner, Theo, he showed us 55 in 18 with the Steelers. So he's done it before, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's still young. He's got such a it seems like his he had the cancer and the injuries.
He's a fighter.
He's an unbelievable fighter. I think he's the kind of guy that everybody roots for.
Yes.
He's got a great attitude on the field, and it seems like Arizona really embraced him this year. And they were running their offense through him for a lot of the year. So you love seeing a guy like that end up getting a great contract. I wish I would have gotten a lot more James Conner when he signed with Arizona and he was so cheap. I did not believe that it was going to work out. Certainly, I didn't believe it was going to work out like this. But it's a great story to see, and I would not underestimate him as long as he stays healthy.
Dan, Landry's a guy you've sold me on big time. Just especially like when you're doing these best balls, when he's sitting there, there's like the options. There's so much, like for me, there's so much space between like the Landry and then the next guy up, like at his value, and he's not even. We don't even know his landing spot yet. So just like all my questions, there's usually more than one part to it. Dan, I'll go to you first because it's your guy. Where do you think Landry ends up now that he's cut? Where would you like to see him? And are there any other free agents that, maybe name another one that you're curious to see where he ends up, that maybe you're looking to, maybe there's an opportunity to grab before that landing happens?
Okay, so Landry, yeah, he's and the reason, let me clarify, the reason why he's such a favorite of mine is just price. Right now he's cheap as hell, and that's the kind of guys that interest me. I want guys who can, if he doesn't do well, he's not hurting me much, and if he does do well, he's doing great. And it was pretty clear he was probably not going to be in Cleveland anymore. I figured he would probably be a good fit with several teams. The Chiefs and the Saints are the ones that it seems like that he's are most interested in him. I think that the Chiefs would be by far the better fit. The Saints, I worry a little bit about. Michael Thomas works a lot out of the slot. I mean, Landry doesn't have to work out of the slot. That's not his only game. But I think his skill set and Michael Thomas is kind of they're a little bit too similar. And so I would rather have Landry in with the Chiefs and, free up Tyreek to go down, get some deeper routes again instead of being that close to the line of scrimmage guy and, let Landry soak up some of those targets. So I'd like to see him go there. But, I think Juju also has a chance to go to the Chiefs, another favorite of ours. I've been buying
I was just going to – sorry, Dan, I laughed because I wanted to just give perspective on the Juju comment. I was literally going to throw that in. Like Juju's going beginning of the 11th, and then Landry's going end of the 13th in best balls, like just recently. So you can see there's a gap there that maybe you could take advantage of. And then we always talk about the translation into dynasty ADPs as well.
Right. There's reports that the Colts and the Buccaneers are the other two teams that might be interested. You got to root for Jarvis Landry to go to New Orleans, though, as the former LSU Tiger. Get him back in there. It would be a great way for him to end his career. I think that the fan base there would embrace him, and he's just such a competitor. Who do you
guys have as the QB in New Orleans right now?
Deshaun Watson, baby.
It could be Watson.
You want Carolina?
Dalton's going no way.
I want Carolina so bad.
Yeah,
DJ Moore. You want DJ Moore to go nuts, don't you?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's going to be Deshaun or Jameis. Like Deshaun is going to be their top option, and it really comes down to Deshaun if he wants it or not. And then I think Jameis is their backup. Jameis has been progressing well through his surgery, and it looks like he'll probably be ready for week 1. So. I mean, I think we're probably looking at one of those two guys for the Saints there. So it should be fun. Another team that I want to add on for Jarvis Landry that I know, I think Rapport tweeted this one today, but the Bills as well. The Bills, I don't know why. It doesn't seem like the greatest fit. I think him and Diggs have somewhat overlapping, especially when they re-signed Isaiah McKenzie. Like between Diggs and McKenzie, like that's kind of like what Jarvis does. But regardless, like Jarvis is a much more productive and consistent version of what Isaiah McKenzie is going to be in terms of at least like from that standpoint of that role. Like he's obviously not as explosive and they can do a lot of different things there, but I think that'd be a fun little spot for Josh Allen and Jarvis. I mean, he's probably not going to put up the same numbers that we saw in the past, but he can be a Tyler Boyd like asset with one of those teams there. So I think he's a fun buy. You know what you're getting out of him. And those type of players, especially like Jarvis, are always undervalued because you see it year in and year out. This guy is constantly productive. And, those are the perfect type of guys to not only draft and redraft, but dynasty. You can probably throw like a late second, like a very late second on him. You get him, you're getting production for the next couple of years. Like he's not going to give you that wide receiver 1 season you saw in the past, but wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 production, easy.
For sure.
We talked Cooper already. let's do a quick before we do a bit of OTC. Just for our dynasty listeners right now, who's like your favorite buy that we haven't mentioned today?
Kyle Pitts, still.
Okay.
Forever and always. Yeah, I mean, he's still going like first round in 1 QB, but I don't care. Like, he should be 101 in 1 QB. Like, that's how confident they feel about him. That's how much of a difference maker he is. I mentioned about my article that or my research I did a couple years ago, and why Higgins and Claypool were buys. Like, there's only one player in this class to do that, and it wasn't a wide receiver. It was Kyle Pitts, and I think he's going to be game breaker. Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce like seasons. This guy's 22 years old. But I don't think we've seen a dynasty asset like him in terms of, we know how important those elite tight end seasons are. He's going to be producing like a wide receiver from that tight end spot. He has potential to be an elite wide receiver tight end spot. 22 years old. I know there's a lot of concerns about the situation there. I'm not too worried. Falcons are probably going to draft another guy. Again, talking about it, you want another good side along there. If you get Drake London, if they get Burks, that's only going to help. If they get Garrett Wilson, like, that's only going to help someone like Pitts there. Yeah, I think by this time next year, I mean, I think we're going to see in redraft over the next few years is how we've seen Kelce constantly be a top 5 pick, especially in FFPC with the premium. We're going to see Pitts every single year, top 5, if not top 3 in terms of picks. And right now you're getting him outside of that in Dynasty. So for me, like that's a no-brainer. And yeah, I think people think he's going to be good. I don't know if everyone understands how good Kyle Pitts is going to be. Like, he's going to be really good.
So good.
Tough one to get though. Do you have anybody who might be a little lower down that might be a little more off the radar?
Yeah. Okay. So from a trade standpoint, you're not getting Kyle Pitts. I'm talking startup. Yes, that's all. You are not getting Kyle Pitts from anyone who rosters him right now. But if you're in a startup, that would be a move in terms of that. It's really tough because I want to say someone like Elijah Moore. But again, you're gonna get that same pushback from the trade market. So we touched on Claypool a little bit. Another guy that I do like right now, that I don't think you're going to get as much pushback on, would be Rashad Bateman. So he's someone I really like. He had a great rookie profile coming out. He came out of the box like doing extremely well, which comped historically great, like almost Jamar Chase, like Randy Moss, Odell levels through his first 4 games in terms of getting targeted. And he wasn't able to keep that up just because of, Mark Andrews' emergence and the quarterback situation there where they had a couple of different guys starting. So his season from an overarching perspective wasn't like incredible but if we take a step back, understand this guy's going to be 22 years old. Lamar Jackson saw an uptick in passing last year, and it seems like they're trending more towards a pass-heavy offense because they do have, Andrews and Brown and Bateman. I think there's concern about how Bateman's going to fit in. Is he going to be the 1? Is he going to be the 2? Is he going to be the 3? And he's being priced as the 3 right now. And he's someone that I think is better than Marquise Brown. And we're going to start to see over the next couple of years him start to emerge as that guy. Yeah, I think Bateman's just an absolute stud. And his rookie profile doesn't comp as well from his entire season to guys that, we would like to see. But his first few games, he was unbelievable. And overall, I think he's a really good buy right now.
I love the call.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
My most owned FFPC player right now.
We love it. We love it.
Bateman.
We love it.
Quick OTC. I'll go back to you guys real quick if you guys have buys and sells. I know Theo's like a trading machine over here.
I get trades done, JD. I get them done.
I'm just jealous. That's the only reason I keep bringing it up. It's pure jealousy. That's all it is. It's just because I wish I could, be as active right now. But let's go back to Juju. Do you prefer Dalton Juju or Tyler Boyd?
Juju. I think there's more upside there if he goes to the right team.
Dan, do you want Juju or DJ Shark?
I'll take Juju there.
Theo, do you want Juju or Christian Kirk?
I'm still probably going Juju, but I do think Kirk's going to be a big part of the offense based on how much money they gave him. I think we can't put our noses in the air to that. But I think Juju is such a great buy low right now, based on his age. We've seen him produce in the past. I think people are going to be aware of what he is. They're not going to try to make him play out of the slot. I think someone's going to sign him and stick him in the slot and let him do his thing.
So this is going to be almost as unpopular opinion as drafting Chris Carson in the 14th round, but the pass catcher I'm most excited about in Jacksonville right now is Evan Ingram. There's no question. I mean, just the way that
did he sign there?
Peterson, yeah, he signed there.
Oh, I totally missed that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I've been drafting him a lot too. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Peterson likes to feature the tight end in the offense. Trevor Lawrence showed he was last year. He was not afraid to throw to the tight end at all. They have Dan Arnold there, but I think Ingram, if he's used as more of that, if he's used as more of a receiver and they just don't ask him to play in line, it's a perfect fit for him. And, he's super cheap right now. I think you can get Ingram even in a tight end premium for probably a late second, early third. They're probably going to be in FFPC when we cut down to, 14 players. There's going to be people who are just desperate to get Ingram off their team and get anything for him. So he's a guy I like a lot right now.
I love that call. I mean, you look at Zach Ertz's success,
Yep.
Dallas Goedert's success. I mean, the tight end will be featured, and I think we can't underestimate the fact that when these teams sign players, they know their limitations as well. So I think that there's Jacksonville's not bringing him in to do things that he can't do. I think that it was a bad fit the last few years in New York, but I do think Ingram could just bounce right back and be, I'm not sure how high you think he's going to finish this year, Dan, but I think it's reasonable to think he could be at least a high-end tight end too, with potential for more.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he's going to be a useful player for sure. And in tight end premium, yeah, I think, I think probably tight end 10 to 18, something like that.
And we might have just drafted him in the current best ball we're splitting.
Love it.
So,
Love it.
Dan was running pure with that call. I'll give Dan the props on that one. He pushed for Ingram, and it's looked like a great pick right now after the signing.
I'm trying to see if I have a Trevor Lawrence, Ingram, because those are two guys I've been drafting a lot. I'm pretty sure I got a couple stacks.
There you go.
Theo, who's your guy? You have a guy that you're targeting?
The same guy that I brought up last week with the Dynasty Warzone guys. It was a great show. Everybody should listen to that one as well. This has been a phenomenal show with Dalton, but that one was great too. It's Michael Carter. I think Michael Carter is a guy that draft capital is kind of holding him back slightly. I think people are a little bit worried about what the Jets are going to do during the draft, bringing in potential competition. But Michael Carter is just, he flashed. The coaching staff has talked him up. He's a two-way back. He'll be, slightly limited by the offense, but I think that I would bet on Michael Carter being I would say with potential to be a mid-level RB2 next year, and I think the price doesn't reflect that. I made a trade for him recently where I traded Darnell Mooney and a 2023 second for Michael Carter and a 2023 fourth, which I feel like I would do that trade again. That team is very strong at wide receiver. I needed a running back, and that's that kind of trade I'm trying to make for Michael Carter. I would not mind moving a late first for Michael Carter. I think that he's the kind of guy that if he survives the NFL draft, then I think his value is gonna shoot way up, and that's a bet I'm willing to take.
Love that. Love the Carter call. I'm going to go, you guys named a bunch of guys already. I'm going to go Pittman. I think just with the uncertainty at the quarterback position in that offense, you're looking at a guy that more than doubled his production in his second year with over 1,000 yards, 100, close to 130 targets. I don't see that route tree getting too much wider just with what's available in that offense other than JT and, Hines and a couple of scrubs. So I think Pittman now with the uncertainty there, I like to go where some values are maybe a little, shrunken based on the current situation where it can change very quickly as we're seeing these days in the NFL. So I think Pittman right now is another guy that may be a little at a value with his current situation. And yeah, I saw the Jets re-signing Coleman, but like you commented on Theo Twitter, we rather see him sign a guy like Coleman than make a trade for like Saquon Barkley or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. To bring in Coleman and anybody else who was on the roster last year, that's fine. If the Jets backfield is exactly the same this year as last year personnel wise, Carter's going to do even better than
continued trajectory as he was going, right? And he showed us a lot in the back end of last year.
And the coaching staff calls him Young MC. So you're not calling a guy you're not sure of young MC.
Nice.
That's a lot to live up to.
Nice.
It's a big time nickname.
It's a great name.
Yep.
All right, guys. Action-packed show. Another one. We're just under 90 minutes. As usual, man, we try to do 60. We're closer to 90. Dalton, man, a ton of goodness tonight. All over the dynasty, the best ball, redraft, whatever you guys play right now in fantasy. You for sure got some goodness out of this. So smash the like button for that. Dalton, remind the people of all the goodness and where they can find it out there in Twitter land and anywhere else that they can find you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at DaltonGuruFF. Again, doing a lot of content, especially betting stuff for NFL draft and heading into NFL season on 4for4 as well. So you can find my work on there. That's really it. I'll be in the Dynasty or Twitter street. So hit me up on there if you have any questions or anything. Happy to chop it up.
I had to throw we got one trade question from the chat, so I had to throw it up there. Dalton, what do you think about this trade? He's asking if you would send Watson for 2022 108. He's got Goff, Cousins, Darnold. I'm assuming this is
one quarterback.
One quarterback dynasty. Yeah.
One quarterback. Oof. I mean, I don't really like this class too much. I mean, I think I would take Watson there, to be honest. Watson offers that unique profile of, dual threat. You know what you're getting out of him. He's likely to, be in that top 5 range every single year for the next 6, 7, 8 years. Like, I'd rather get that, especially in this draft class. I'd rather do that than pay a, early second for Malik Willis or whatever you're going to do to draft him.
Oh, it's 2 quarterback dynasty. That's a slam
smash. Oh, that's a smash.
Oh my
that's
God.
An easy one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, even with one quarterback, I mean, you think about it, if you get Watson for the 108, I mean, you could, the worst thing you're going to have is like, if whoever goes at the 108 really pops, but what are the odds of, the guy that you would have taken at 108 really popping? And even if he does, I mean, you've still got Deshaun Watson. I mean, you're set at quarterback for years. So it's almost impossible to lose when you take Watson, even in one quarterback at 108.
All right, look at that. We helped famous Jay out. Guys, another fun show. Theo, we had a big one last week. We keep bringing it up, and it's for a reason, guys. A ton of goodness on that one. Dynasty rookies with Dynasty Warzone guys, Jerry and Randy. So go check that out. I think we're going to try to drop a ball-in episode this week, do a live best ball on the either FFPC or Underdog. We'll see which one fits the schedule better. Both awesome platforms. But Theo, what else do we have coming up? You got some names we can drop?
Dwayne McFarland's going to be coming back on the show sometime soon. And then we have a number of other strong guests in the woodwork. It should be, I mean, we're going to bring great guests on all the way through the NFL draft. It's an exciting time. We have a lot going on with the free agency and NFL draft and, trades and all that. So we're going to bring on the best sharp guests. So if you enjoyed Dalton tonight, you enjoyed the Warzone guys last week, you enjoyed JJ Zachariason, expect more great guests like these guys coming in the GOAT District.
For sure, guys. We're going to keep coming hard. We're going to keep bringing the hits. Make sure you're tuning in on the regular, like tonight with Dalton. You want that edge, right? And we're here to help you get that all off season. Check out the Ballin'. We'll be bringing that out soon. Guys, go get your first Denver stack, your first Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, maybe throw some Sutton in there, and then drop a Jibaway. I can never say his last name. I never remember the tight end's last name, but Thank you.
Yep.
See, you guys have been practicing. I'll have to do that on my off time. But no, guys, go get yourself your first Denver stack, whether it's on the FFPC, myffpc.com. They got a ton of best ball drafts, including a big money tournament for 25 grand. And then, you want to play on your mobile, do a little something quicker. Underdog, use the code district, sign up now and get yourself up to $100 matched on your initial deposit. Guys, we always appreciate you guys tuning in. We hope you got a lot of goodness out of this. Share your comments with the peeps. Share your trades. Be grateful. Be good. And we'll check you all later.
Go district, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
So
Awesome show, guys.
Did you guys see? Is there an update on DJ Shark, or is he just trending because Zay Jones signed with?
all the Jags are probably trending right now.
Yeah. They were talking about who was in on him. They were saying that Patriots might be in on him.
Yes, that's
and there
right.
was
The Raiders.
Team or two. The Raiders. Yeah, Raiders.
Yep.
That would make a lot of sense.
Atlanta.
I feel like Atlanta's. Yeah. I feel like Atlanta's. It's just weird. But I also like. I feel like DJ Shark's maybe a guy that people wait for a couple of that first wave to sign, and then he gets a good offer.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Gallup was hurt, and he still got a deal. So, but that's from his own team. You never know. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some market out there for him. He's probably waiting for everyone now. He's going to try and get the bag. Him and did you guys see what Valdez Scantling is projected at, like $12 million or something like that?
It's nuts. It's nuts. It's just nuts.
It's crazy.
Dude,
but
jeez, man.
But MVS or Shark would be great in Vegas, I think. They need drafting Ruggs and spending such a high pick, for a guy that they're just going to use to clear out the short stuff. That just never made a lot of sense to me. But if you get a Shark or somebody like that, it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper, or at least you should be, I think. Who do you think's going to get more, Scantling or Shark?
Shark.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be pretty shocked.
Okay.
I think he's showing more.
Then maybe not. Maybe that might be able to.
You never know. I mean, like with anything with what Kirk got today, I will not be surprised about anything that happens.
Well, teams get more desperate, right? Because they have less options, right? And they have to do something. They have money to spend.
I mean, the Jaguars just were desperate right off the bat. They knew no one wanted to go to the Jacksonville, so they threw the freaking Brinks truck at everyone. I'm just really curious to see which team that actually needs a wide receiver drops the bomb on Valdez Scantling, because I don't want it to be a team that matters. I want I would have been happy if he went to the Jags, throw him on the Dolphins or something. I don't care. Don't have him go to the Patriots, because I want Mac Jones to actually get a good wide receiver and not them to utilize their capital on them. So I'm
right.
Yeah, send him back to the Packers or something. They don't have any money for him, but I mean,
Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, and MVS as your starting wide receivers in New England.
Wow.
Ooh.
Just be ugly.
They just call them the wide receiver 3s.
But on the other hand, you don't want Belichick drafting a wide receiver, because that's the kiss of death right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
that is true.
Yeah, his track record on drafting wide receivers is practically unblemished. I mean, it's like for everything.
He hit on N'Keal Harry. He just hasn't used him properly. So that's what I tell myself every day.
There you go. That's
All right.
that's some next level stuff there, Dalton.